And now a history of LJN's Dune action figures. LJN was founded in 1970 by Jack Friedman. Friedman saw the future and formed LJN to make toys based on licensed properties, beginning with Emergency in 1972. Kids loved hospital dramas after all. Hey, it was the 70s, so what do I know? This was a significant shift in logic. LJN put their money into buying licenses rather than paying for advertising. It's as if Friedman could see into the future with this. In 1976, Jeff Lewis, the Southwest representative of LJN, said, "It's a whole new way of using the TV medium. The shows become your advertising, but you've got to anticipate and take chances." Lewis went on to mention that a mold for a toy, even in 1976, could cost over $100,000. In the 1980s, the Reaganomics deregulation resulted in cartoons explicitly for toy lines.
Or I'll turn you into a suitcase!
Before that, that was a no-no. Be sure to watch this video where I talk about that and how basically guilt led to the invention of the PSA, or at least the 1980s version of it. In 1982, Friedman paid $25,000 for the rights to toys based on E.T. Something nobody else seemed to be interested in, and frankly, the buy-in on that was much less than TV advertising would have been.
My kids are wild about E.T. Now there's a whole collection of E.T. toys. This one talks.
LJN made $70 million on sales of E.T. toys in 1982. Friedman said, "We don't even need TV advertising this year."
Wind this guy up, he walks. Almost like the real E.T. My kids really love their E.T. toys. They actually believe E.T. lives in their closet.
An E.T. toy collection from LJN.
Thank you.
For most kids of my generation, LJN is known for some really awful video games and some really massive wrestling figures. A license for which they outbid Galooms $25,000, who outbid Remco's $100,000 with a bid of $250,000 for a half a decade of rubbery glory.
Now you can fly 'em and flip 'em in the Sling 'em wrestling ring. Wrestling superstars and new wrestling ring, each sold separately from LJN.
But like most toy companies in the 1980s, they wanted to be Kenner, i.e. they wanted a Star Wars-like toy success. Either that, they wanted Spielberg and Melissa Mathis to write a prequel or a sequel to E.T. I don't know, maybe one where they fight the Transformers, but that's another toy company. Where did LJN think they'd find their Star Wars-like success? On the sands of Arrakis. Remember what Jeff Lewis said, "You've got to anticipate and take chances." Take chances indeed. Dune was released in 1984, and Universal Pictures and Dino De Laurentiis went all in with toys and coloring books and everything imaginable for any big licensed movie property at the time. But this movie was not remotely a kid's movie. And while Dune certainly inspired Star Wars, Dune, and I mean like any version of Dune, is not Star Wars. I won't go into the Dune film here so much. From its controversial depiction of the Harkonnens? I'm not sure which is the correct way to pronounce it and which version pronounces it which at the moment. I'm bad at pronouncing anything anyway, let alone sci-fi names. I definitely won't talk about the breathy, whispered voiceovers from every single character as they think through things we're seeing on the screen in the movie as we see them, and they say them as we see them. But understand that it's a weird movie and kind of a bad one. And I kind of love it, even though it's definitely a bad movie. So bad and such a traumatic experience, David Lynch refuses to talk about it.
But it was a nightmare, and it was a nightmare.
But all he needs to do is the weather from Santa Monica.
Cloudy.
What you do need to know about the movie, the design is awesome for the most part. Some of it's a bit funky, but the costume design in particular is awesome, in a somewhat limited budget 1980s way. The action figures themselves were on the larger side, about 5.5 inches tall, making them stand out on toy shelves, but making them not compatible with the then standard size of Star Wars and G.I. Joe figures. The line included 6 figures. The full-on bloat mode Baron Harkonnen, who is the only figure that I remember from my childhood, although I didn't realize what he was until much later in life. Paul Atreides in his formal wear and unfortunately not his still suit, Stain cosplaying as Fayed, and not in the gothic metal underwear, the Beast Rabbin with a really amazing likeness, Stilgar in his dirty brown sand-worn still suit, and the ultimate fighting champion sent by the Emperor himself, a Sardaukar warrior, disguised as a Harkonnen sanitation worker. Strangely, the line features more bad guys than good guys, and Lady Jessica and Captain Picard were actually showed in promotional material, but never released. The line also includes some of those amazing funky sand mining vehicles, and those sandworms. I'm not gonna say anything about the sandworms, just look at them and come to your own conclusions. The Spy Scout is an amazing looking toy, at least from the distance of eBay listings. A Harkonnen, Thropter, was shown in promotional material, but like the Lady and the Captain, never released.
Sir?
In 1984, LJN also went all in on another big license, one that for whatever reason really never took off as a toy in its time period.
Indiana Jones and other action figures new from Raiders of the Lost Ark collection, each sold separately.
Despite being from George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, Indiana Jones just never set the toy world ablaze.
All downhill from here, swordsman.
Granted, Temple of Doom was literally a movie Spielberg says was made when he was in a really dark place, with the central plot of child labor. Like Dune, it wasn't exactly the perfect choice for a kid's toy line, and like Dune, it failed miserably. When talking about the failure of toys and dolls based on the film Annie a few years earlier, Friedman said LJN would probably wind up selling half of them at a loss, which applied both to the Temple of Doom and Dune lines, meaning that both are super collectible now because they were clearanced in the 80s. As to the LJN indie toys, they were in the same style and scale as the Dune figures, down to the Battlematic action, and even more insane prices on eBay. I mean, probably because of the obvious popularity of Indiana Jones versus that version of Dune.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
In terms of functionality and design, they were kind of sort of a prototype for a future line from LJN which would be way more successful and way more popular.
Thunder, 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 yeah. With Battlematic action, you can make them fight with their swords.
The sword is mine, Lion-O!
Thunder, thunder, yeah. Each sold separately, new from LJN.
And that's it for the history of LJN's Dune. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. What do you think of that Dune? I love it. Legitimately, I love it. Even though I know it's bad. And the toys, I love them too. And I love comments on my videos. Bye.